close attention to what I am about to share with you, because what you are going to hear in the next few minutes could literally save your life, or the life of someone sitting right beside you tonight. A dear friend of mine, a retired postal worker named George, 73 years old from Springfield, Missouri, was found by his daughter one morning completely unresponsive. He had gone to bed the evening before feeling perfectly fine. He had eaten dinner, watched a little television, and gone to sleep just like he had done 10,000 times before. He was gone before the paramedics arrived. The cause was a massive cardiac event that struck while he slept. And when I looked deeper into what had been happening with George in the months leading up to that night, I found something his own doctor had completely missed. Something that millions of seniors are doing right now, tonight, without the faintest idea that it is quietly damaging their heart, thickening their blood, and setting the stage for stroke and sudden death. A landmark study published in the European Heart Journal followed over 84,000 adults between the ages of 60 and 80 across a period of 9 years. The researchers found that individuals who regularly engaged in a specific set of nighttime habits had a 67% higher risk of cardiovascular-related death during sleep compared to those who had made simple, targeted changes to their evening routine. 67%. That is not a rounding error. That is not a minor statistical footnote. That is the difference between waking up tomorrow morning and never waking up at all. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Doctor, I feel perfectly fine. I sleep just fine. This is not something I need to worry about. And I need you to hear me clearly when I say that is exactly the kind of thinking that costs people their lives. The most dangerous conditions do not announce themselves. They build silently over months and years, like rust forming on the inside of a pipe, completely invisible, completely undetected, right up until the moment the pipe bursts. My name is Dr. Sarah Ellison, and I have spent over a decade as a practicing cardiologist watching what happens when the warning signs get ignored, not out of carelessness, but simply out of not knowing. My mission on this channel is to make sure that never happens to you. Today, I am going to walk you through 6 things that seniors need to stop doing before bed. And I will tell you right now, number 2 on this list genuinely surprised me the first time I reviewed the research, and most of you are doing it every single night without realizing it. So stay with me all the way through, because missing even one of these could cost you everything. But before we get into it, I want to ask you something personal. Leave me a comment below right now. Tell me how old you are and whether you have ever woken up in the middle of the night with your heart pounding or feeling short of breath. I read every single comment, and your answers genuinely shape the content I create for this community. Now, let us get into it. Coming in at number 6, and this one might surprise you because it feels so completely harmless, is eating a large meal within 2 hours of going to bed. I know this is something that millions of people do every single night without a second thought. A late dinner, a generous snack, maybe some leftovers before turning in. It feels comforting. It feels routine. But here is what is actually happening inside your body when you do this, and it is not a comfortable picture. When you eat a large meal, your digestive system demands an enormous surge of blood flow to process that food. Your heart has to work significantly harder, pumping blood to your stomach and intestines at a time when it should be beginning to wind down. For a younger person, this extra demand is manageable. But researchers at the University of Sao Paulo found that in adults over 65, postprandial cardiac stress, that means the cardiovascular strain that occurs after eating, increases blood pressure by an average of 22 points and elevates heart rate substantially for up to 3 hours afterward. Now picture that happening while you are lying down and asleep, with your body already in its most vulnerable state of the day. There is also the issue of acid reflux and something called vagal stimulation. When stomach acid travels upward, which happens far more easily when you are horizontal with a full stomach, it can trigger irregular heart rhythms in susceptible individuals. And after the age of 70, the valve at the base of your esophagus that keeps acid from rising weakens considerably, making this problem dramatically worse with every passing year. The fix here is genuinely simple. Finish your last full meal at least 3 hours before bed. If you are hungry in the evening, a small, easily digestible snack, a few walnuts, half a banana, is perfectly fine. And pair that habit with a short 10-minute walk after dinner. Research from the University of Limerick found that just 10 minutes of walking after a meal reduces blood glucose spikes by 28% and takes meaningful pressure off your cardiovascular system during those critical nighttime hours. This single change, made tonight, begins protecting your heart immediately. Now let us move to number 5. Taking your blood pressure medication in the morning when you should actually be taking it at night. A groundbreaking study published in the European Heart Journal, and I will link the full reference in the description below, followed over 19,000 patients across 6 years. The researchers discovered that people who took blood pressure medication at bedtime rather than in the morning had a 45% lower risk of heart attack, a 49% lower risk of heart failure, and a stunning 66% lower risk of stroke. The reason comes down to something called nocturnal hypertension. This is a phenomenon where blood pressure spikes dangerously high during the early morning hours, typically between 3 and 6 a.m. And this is precisely the window when most cardiac events and strokes occur. When you take your medication in the morning, it peaks in effectiveness around midday and begins wearing off by the time you enter that deadly early morning window. But when you take it at bedtime, it is working at full strength exactly when your body needs it most. Now, and this is important, do not change your medication timing without speaking to your doctor first. Every patient is different, and some medications need to be taken with food. But take this information to your next appointment. Show your doctor this research. Have that conversation, because it genuinely could save your life. And here is something worth noting. What we just discussed at number 5 connects directly to what I am about to share at number 4 in a way that multiplies the protective benefit of both. Pay close attention, because these two work together. Number 4 is what I call the silent dehydration trap, and it is one of the most dangerously underestimated cardiovascular threats facing people over 65. Here is the irony that breaks my heart every time I explain it. Most seniors intentionally drink less water in the evening, specifically to avoid waking up for bathroom trips during the night. That instinct makes complete sense on the surface, but what that habit is doing to your blood while you sleep is genuinely alarming. As we age, our kidneys become less efficient at concentrating urine, and the body's thirst mechanism, controlled by a region of the brain called the hypothalamus, becomes significantly blunted after about age 60. Research from the University of Connecticut's Human Performance Laboratory found that older adults can be seriously dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty. That is the trap. You do not feel it coming. Here is where it connects directly to your heart and your brain. When you are dehydrated, sleep, your blood becomes thicker and more viscous. Think of the difference between water flowing through a pipe and honey moving through that same pipe. That thick, sticky blood has to be forced through your arteries with far greater effort from your heart. And it forms clots far more easily, which is precisely how strokes happen. A study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology found that adults over 65 who were mildly dehydrated at bedtime had blood viscosity levels comparable to those seen immediately before a thrombotic stroke. The solution is not to drink a large glass of water right before you get into bed. That will simply have you up all night. Instead, drink a full glass of water with electrolytes, particularly potassium and magnesium, about 2 hours before sleep. Foods naturally rich in potassium, like a small sweet potato or a few dried apricots in the late afternoon, help sustain that hydration through the night without overloading your bladder. The magnesium specifically relaxes arterial walls and gently lowers blood pressure during sleep. Together, these two nutrients act like a quiet, protective cushion around your cardiovascular system for the hours ahead. Now, if this video has been valuable to you, I want to ask you to take just 5 seconds right now and hit the like button and subscribe if you have not already done so. We are a community built around the belief that aging powerfully is absolutely possible. And every like and every subscription helps me reach more seniors who need this information. It means everything to me and to this community. Now, let us keep going, because we are moving into the most critical territory on this list. Number 3 is one that genuinely breaks my heart, because I see it every single week in my practice, and I watched it firsthand with a patient of mine named Margaret, 76 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Margaret came to see me after experiencing her second minor stroke within 2 years. She was taking all the right medications, she exercised regularly, her diet was reasonable. But when I sat with her and asked about her evenings, she described something I immediately recognized as a serious cardiovascular problem. Every night, without fail, Margaret spent 2 to 3 hours lying in bed scrolling through her tablet, reading news, browsing social media, watching family videos, with the screen just inches from her face in an otherwise dark room. She had absolutely no idea that this nightly habit was systematically destabilizing her cardiovascular system. Here is the science. The blue light emitted by screens, phones, tablets, televisions, directly suppresses the production of melatonin. Most people think of melatonin simply as a sleep hormone, but researchers at Brigham and Women's Hospital, affiliated with Harvard Medical School, have demonstrated that melatonin plays a critical role in cardiovascular protection. Acts as a potent antioxidant that protects the lining of your blood vessels, called the endothelium, from the kind of oxidative damage that leads to plaque buildup, arterial stiffening, and ultimately heart attack and stroke. When melatonin is suppressed by nighttime screen exposure, that protective shield is essentially lowered at the exact moment your body needs it most. In adults over 70, whose melatonin production is already reduced by approximately 75% compared to younger adults, this suppression is particularly devastating. A study from the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that chronic nighttime light exposure was associated with a 43% increase in major adverse cardiac events in older adults. Margaret followed my guidance. She committed to a strict no-screen policy after 8 p.m. Within 6 weeks, she told me she was sleeping more deeply than she had in years. Within 4 months, her C-reactive protein levels, a key marker of cardiovascular inflammation, had dropped by over 30%. She has not had a cardiac event since. Stopping screens 2 hours before bed is one of the most powerful cardiovascular decisions you can make, and it costs you nothing. Now we are approaching the top of this list, and what comes next is the habit that genuinely surprised me when I first encountered the research behind it. Number 2 is sleeping on your back. Before you dismiss this, I need you to hear me out, because the research behind this is absolutely undeniable, and the mechanism is one that affects far more seniors than most people realize. When you sleep flat on your back, gravity causes the tongue and the soft tissues of the throat to fall backward, partially or fully blocking the airway. This is the primary physical mechanism behind obstructive sleep apnea, a condition estimated to affect 50% of adults over the age of 65, the vast majority of whom have never been diagnosed and have no idea it is happening to them. During these apnea episodes, your brain triggers an emergency response, flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline. Your blood pressure spikes to dangerously high levels, and this can happen dozens, sometimes hundreds of times in a single night. Each episode lasts only seconds, brief enough that you never fully wake up, but long enough to cause serious and cumulative damage to your heart and blood vessels. The American Heart Association has formally recognized untreated sleep apnea as a major independent risk factor for hypertension, atrial fibrillation, heart attack, and stroke. A study published in the journal Circulation found that adults with moderate to severe sleep apnea carried a 58% higher risk of fatal cardiac arrhythmia during sleep. This is how seemingly healthy people die quietly in the night. If you share a bed, ask your partner whether you snore or whether you ever appear to stop breathing momentarily during sleep. If you sleep alone, place your phone on the nightstand with the voice memo app running for one night. The signs are often unmistakable. Sleeping on your side, and particularly your left side, which reduces mechanical pressure on the heart, is dramatically protective. A simple body pillow placed behind your back can prevent you from rolling over during the night. And for those who have already been diagnosed with sleep apnea, a CPAP device is not optional. It is genuinely life-saving. Do not let discomfort or stubbornness keep you from using it. And now we have arrived at number 1, the single most dangerous bedtime habit for seniors, the one that underlies and amplifies every single risk I have described today. Number 1 is chronic, untreated emotional stress left to fester in the hours before sleep. I want you to pause for a moment and think about your typical evening. Do you watch the news before bed? Politics, crime, disasters, conflict? Do you lie awake running through worries about your health, your finances, your family? Do you replay difficult conversations or painful moments from the day, turning them over and over in your mind? If so, you are engaging in what researchers at the University of California, Berkeley call rumination before rest, and its impact on your cardiovascular system is nothing short of catastrophic. Here is the mechanism. When you experience psychological stress, your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, the very same stress hormones triggered by sleep apnea, but in this case, they are sustained and unrelenting throughout the night. This chronic elevation of stress hormones prevents your blood pressure from completing its natural nighttime dip. In a healthy person, blood pressure falls by 10 to 20% during sleep, giving the heart and the blood vessels the critical recovery window they need every single night. In individuals experiencing chronic evening stress, that dip never fully occurs. The heart never truly rests. A 20-year study conducted jointly by the American Heart Association and researchers at Johns Hopkins University found that adults who reported chronic nighttime worry and high levels of evening stress had a 72% higher lifetime risk of fatal cardiovascular events compared to their peers with lower evening stress levels. And after the age of 70, when the body's ability to regulate cortisol is already diminished by roughly 40%, this effect becomes even more pronounced and even more dangerous. This is what took my friend George. It was not just one thing. It was the accumulation, the late dinner, the blood that had thickened overnight, the screen glowing in the dark, the nights spent on his back. And underneath all of it, a man who lay awake every night worrying quietly about his finances, about his health, about whether he was a burden to his family, without ever saying a word to anyone. His heart never got the recovery time it so desperately needed, night after night after night. The intervention is not complicated, but it must be deliberate. 30 minutes before bed, I want you to practice what I call a cardiac wind down. Turn off all news and all screens. Take a pen and write down 3 things that genuinely went well today. 3 things, no matter how small. Research from the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley shows that this simple act measurably lowers cortisol levels within 20 minutes. Then practice what is known as 4-7-8 breathing. Inhale slowly for 4 counts, hold for 7, and exhale completely for 8. This activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your body's built-in calm-down system, and directly lowers both heart rate and blood pressure. If prayer or meditation is already part of your life, this is its most powerful application, not as a formality, but as genuine physiological medicine for your heart. Finally, consider pairing this wind down with magnesium glycinate, 200 to 400 milligrams, taken 30 minutes before bed. Unlike other forms of magnesium, this specific form crosses the blood-brain barrier, directly calming the nervous system while simultaneously relaxing the walls of your blood vessels. Research from the National Institutes of Health has found that it reduces nighttime cortisol levels and improves sleep quality in adults over 65 by up to 39%. Think of it as a gentle hand resting on your heart's shoulder, quietly telling it that it is safe, that tonight it can finally rest. Before I let you go, I want to say something that I mean with complete sincerity, something I say to every patient I sit across from, regardless of their age or their condition. It is never too late. That is not empty encouragement. That is biological reality. The human body, even at 75, even at 80, even at 85, retains a remarkable and documented capacity to heal and to adapt when we remove the things that are silently harming it. Every single change I described today, finishing dinner earlier, adjusting when you take your medication, staying hydrated, putting the screen down, changing how you sleep, and protecting the peace of your evenings, every one of these is within your reach tonight, not next month, not after your next doctor's appointment, tonight. So please share this video with someone you love, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, because you may never know whose life it reaches at exactly the right moment. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please do that right now by clicking the button below. We release new content every single week dedicated entirely to helping you live longer, stronger, and with the independence and dignity you deserve. I am your Dr. Sarah Ellison, and I will see you in the next video.